Oxford Senior Center provides social opportunities, exercises, and meals. Thank God Hillsborough Street didn't pay. And then this is nowhere, nowhere. Wait. I got my job in Oxford. Oxford's a good place to work. Now, several people did mention some unfinished business. The paving of city streets needs to be completed. Cracked and uneven sidewalks need repair. More parking spaces are needed. Thank you for the privilege of appearing before the board. Have a pleasant and productive evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have a prayer by the Mayor Pro Tem at this time.
For all those that are inclined, if you'll bow with me. All wise and kind Father, we humbly bow to say thank you. Thank you for your mercies of this day. Now, God, we ask you to intercede into this board. Let us govern with our thoughts, our minds, and our hearts, that we do not decide for ourselves. The decisions we make will be for our citizens. So, God, you intercede and stand in. And when we depart from this place, I ask that you provide traveling mercies and safety for all that are here. These and all my prayers I pray in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. At this time, we will consider adjustment to an approval of. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Lumpkins, pledge of allegiance.
Please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we will consider adjustment to and approval of tonight's agenda. Are there any adjustment? Is there a motion?
motion.
Second? Any discussion? No adjustment to tonight's agenda. To provide for the highest standards of behavior and transparency in governance, the Board of Commissioners have approved a code of ethics to establish guidelines for ethical standards for board members and to provide guidance in determining appropriate conduct. Among those, board members shall avoid impropriety in the exercise of their official duties and should conduct their affairs on the board in an open and public manner. If any board member knows of a conflict of interest or appearance of a conflict, please say so at this time. Let the record stand. Note no conflicts of interest. This time we'll start. We moved to the proclamation for Black History by Commissioner Bridges. And we'd like to call Mrs. Mary Green forward.
So good evening.
Good evening.
You know, I know that I'm to do this proclamation, and I'm gonna get to it soon. But I have to say this, I went to my granddaughter's elementary school and spoke to some grandchildren or children in general. And as I was speaking to those students, and I wondered why it was that there are folks that don't want us to know our history. Why shouldn't they learn about Mary McLeod with Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, Dr. Charles Drew? You know, folks that have contributed to our country and made it what it is. Why would there be those who don't want folks to know their history? As you know, right now there's an attack on folks knowing their history, especially our young folks. I got 3 granddaughters, and I am concerned that they may not know their history. They may not know about Miss Green. So I said what I wanted to say. I don't care less how folk feel. Whereas Black History Month is an annual celebration of the achievements and contribution of African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in the history of the United States. And whereas the origin of Black History Month dates back to 1926, when a historian, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History established Negro History Week during the second week of February to coincide with the birthday of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Whereas in 1976, during the United States bicentennial, President Gerald R. Ford, one of my favorite presidents, officially recognized Black History Month, urging Americans to seize the opportunity to honor and to often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area and endeavor throughout our history. And whereas the contributions of African Americans have been instrumental in shaping the culture, economics, political, and social fabric of our nation. And these contributions continue to inspire and strengthen our communities. And whereas the city of Oxford acknowledges and honors the legacy of African American leaders, educators, artists, activists, entrepreneurs, and citizens who have played a vital role in the advancement of justice, of equality, and opportunity. And whereas this Black History Month theme, African Americans in the arts, recognizes the profound impact of Black artists, musicians, writers, and creators in shaping the American culture and inspiring future generations, my grandbabies. Whereas we are pleased to honor Mrs. Mary Gregory Green as this year's Black History Month proclamation honoree. Miss Green made history, and I didn't know this, Miss Green, as the first African American woman to be employed by the city of Oxford, working both in the water department and the tax office. She was born and raised in Oxford, North Carolina, to Mr. and Mrs. Sherman and Mary Helen Gregory. She is married to Charlie Green. I think he's out there. And they have 4 grown children and 7 grandchildren. She attended Shaw University, I told her that. Yeah, where she earned her BA degree in religion and philosophy, and later continued her education at Shaw University in the seminary, and ended up getting her MAS. And now, therefore, I, Guillermo Nurse, mayor of the city of Oxford, North Carolina, along with the Board of Commissioners, do hereby I'm glad you made it larger, so I can see it. Proclamation for February 2025, Black History Month in the city of Oxford, and encourage all residents to join in the observance by participating in educational and cultural events that celebrate African American history and heritage. And wherefore, I have here to set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Oxford to be affixed this the 11th day of February 2025. And so let's give her a hand of
There was a group of volunteers we had. You're not here? Okay. Yeah. At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Preston Royster. He will make a presentation.
Y'all got the clip? I'll just tell you. All right. Good evening, Mayor and Board of Commissioners. I know it's going to be a tough act to follow. I think I might get Commissioner Bridges through this presentation. We come before you again. This is for the Hunt Landis development on Salem Road, Landis Road, and Taps Creek. We'll go through this fairly quickly. Everybody's pretty much seen this, but if there are any questions, feel free to stop me at any point, and we can answer any at the end. On the screen, you'll see highlighted in red is the area of the project. This is the area that will eventually, hopefully, be annexed or is to be annexed into the city of Oxford. Next slide. Yeah, so these are some of the conditions of the annexation. We went over these last time. This project site, or the site, does meet all of these conditions for consideration for annexation. Next slide. So this is the zoning map. The proposed zoning for this site is RMU, which is residential mixed use. The site is in tan there, and you can see the adjacent properties that are already zoned, GR5, GR10, that are adjacent to the project site, as well as the city limits. Next slide. So these are the uses that are allowed in the residential mixed use, or it explains what the residential mixed use is. Basically, it allows for a mix of residential uses as well as a few other uses. Should go to the next slide. This is the table of permitted uses. We don't need to spend any time on this unless y'all want to discuss that. Go to the next one. One more. There we go. So the existing conditions on the site, bulk of this area is vacant currently. It is adjacent to the Oxford Preparatory School. Like I said, it's got frontage on Landis Road, Salem Road, and Taps Creek. Next slide. This is the sketch plan that was submitted to the city of Oxford, which has been reviewed, and from the technical review standpoint has been approved. The planning board approved this plan as well. It shows a mix of different residential uses that include townhomes and a couple different sizes of single-family homes, as well as an assisted living portion of the site, a commercial component, as well as multiple recreational components and amenities. At the perimeter of the site, we do show the city required 20-foot type C buffer, landscape buffer. Since the last time we were here, we've made a couple adjustments on the east side of the site, adjacent to the properties that are currently developed on Taps Creek Road. We have increased the width of that buffer. Next slide.
How much has it increased the buffer?
So it has increased to 30 feet. So we bumped it up 10 feet. There was also some concern about the streets in that area being built right or directly adjacent to the property lines. This plan is somewhat schematic, so it's not designed right down to the foot. So it was never the intent to build the streets all the way up to the property line right against folks' property. That's just the way it was sketched out. So we've clarified that. We've pulled it off. It's outside that 30-foot buffer now, as shown in the plan. So this just as a bin view. It's a change from the previous plan that you may have seen. Next slide. As we discussed last time, the project will be phased. The construction will be phased over several years. Right now, we're projecting preliminarily 13 phases. Next slide. So this is some of the pertinent data on the site. It's 409 acres, as we mentioned. It's proposed to be zone RMU with a density of 4.56 units per acre. That is a cap. The RMU does allow up to 14 units per acre, but we've capped that at 4.56. So that is the maximum density that could be constructed, assuming the zoning is approved. Obviously, it could be less than that if the when we go through the technical design, the construction drawing design, the grades, utilities, all that will play a role in the ultimate density that's constructed at the site. And a TIA has been prepared and reviewed by NCDOT. We'll discuss that next. Actually, one more commitment. Yeah, here we go. So this is an area, last time we were here, we showed the diagrams from the TIA, which were a little bit confusing. So we expanded the area and noted the intersections that will be improved as part of this project on an aerial map, so everybody can see kind of the context that's proposed here, or that will be constructed here. So it's roughly 15 intersections that will be upgraded with different types of road improvements based on the traffic impact analysis and NCDOT's review and recommendations of those improvements. And in addition to the project site itself, the TIA does take into account additional or other developments that are either under construction in the case of Oakmont Manor or are going through reviews in the case of Cruise Pond, and then future development, which is the Zero Landis Road site. And it also took into account existing traffic patterns, the school, everything that's out there today. Next slide. And this just is zoomed in a little bit closer. If we got any questions, we can take a closer look at these. Next slide. There again, it's just the other half of the required improvements. And if you really want to read it, there's a summary of everything the DOT reviewed and is proposing as far as recommendations for traffic upgrades and improvements as part of this project. Next slide. With that, if you've got any questions on the project or any other thing related to it, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Hart, can you tell me, does this development meet requirements by the city of Oxford?
It does meet the requirements for the residential mixed-use criteria, which, as Mr. Forrester explained, it allows up to 14 dwelling units per acre. He's proposing 4.5. You heard him mention about the buffer, and the planning board on a 8-1 vote voted that this development would approve.
Thank you very much. Before we move to public comments, we had is there faith-based outreach here today? Anyone from faith-based outreach? No. Okay. So this time, we're going to be moving to public comments. And I want to say one thing. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 people signed up for the Hunt Landis. We already been to a public hearing, and we talked about this and talked about this. So I'm going to allow 3, you can choose them yourself, 3 members to do public comments on this project at this time. Can you say again?
How do we do that? That doesn't seem right.
You can't limit public comment based on topic.
Yeah, people showed up, they signed up to speak. I mean, people are very concerned about this. We're talking about growing the city with 50%.
We have the opportunity of 3 speakers, 3 members.
For the United States Constitution.
We have 3 members that can come up and speak.
Attorney.
That's what I'm asking. You mean, is that legal, Mr. Burnett?
Okay. Thank you, board members. So my board is recommending that we allow you to speak. And at this time, we'll ask Mrs. Loretta Getz. Oh. Turn yours off. Turn that off.
One more.
Run that one.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I want to be clear that I'm not opposed to the development,
Excuse
but
me.
growth is necessity.
Excuse me. Your name.
My name is Loretta Getz.
Okay. So that it will be on the record.
Thank you. Growth is both necessary and inevitable, but it must be done right for the kind of growth that respects the character of our community, enhances our quality of life, and positions Oxford for long-term prosperity. In the classic It's a Wonderful Life, we've seen two visions of development: Bailey Park, a thoughtfully planned neighborhood that fosters community, and Pottersville. It's an overbuilt, unrestrained expansion that deteriorates the quality of life. We must ask ourselves, are we shaping Bailey Park, or are we allowing Oxford to become Pottersville? So Oxford needs development that strengthens its long-term prosperity and attracting financially stable and engaged residents. This proposal does not align with this goal. Oxford needs development, Oxford's median household income is just under $40,000, significantly lower than nearby towns in Granville County of Creedmoor and Drakelinton. To raise Oxford's economic profile, we must build housing that attracts professionals, business owners, and long-term owners. Many homeowners to Oxford seeking space, peace, and affordability, something increasingly unavailable in cities like Raleigh and Cary. The proposed 4.56 units per acre, up to 1,865 homes, is just unsustainable in Oxford's infrastructure. Oxford has an imbalance of home ownership. Over half of its residents are rental properties compared to 22% of the rest of Granville County. High-density developments tend to shift toward rentals, increasing transient, reducing long-term community investment. Studies show that the area with higher rental concentrations experience increased crime and declining neighborhood stability. A healthy community balances residential and commercial. Without economic expansion, high-density housing becomes a burden rather than a benefit. Oxford must attract businesses and job creators to enhance residents live, work, and invest in the local community. Otherwise, there's a risk of becoming a commuter town. So there's a better path forward. So we want to reduce the units per acre. We want to be able to, I guess I don't have to worry about the buffer. That sounds like that's been fixed. Conduct the full traffic and infrastructure study that includes the Perry Farm development, reevaluate the Salem Farm entrance based on the updated density requirements, and then prioritize commercial development and job creation to sustain Oxford's economy. So will the rapid or short-sighted expansion that increases crime? Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This time would like to call Ron Williams. Williams, can you state your address?
Bon Williams, live at 5689 Tabbs Creek Road.
Sir.
We're happy to see that the developer did add some additional buffers to the existing residents, property owners on Tabbs Creek. That's positive. Still would like to see a little bit less density as far as instead of 4.5, which at 4.0, half a unit per acre ends up being a significant amount of people impacting the area. Also, the some more like the Perry Farms, where that's coming down the line right behind us. They're 2.3 units per acre. And I don't know if anything's been asked or addressed about, on the golf course, how is that going to be managed? Sure, the HOA is not going to manage a golf course. Oxford Prep is not prepared to manage the golf course. I don't think the city is planning on taking on this golf course, and the builder there, I mean, they're a large scale track builder. As soon as the houses are done, they're gonna be gone. So, you know, we've had a 9-hole golf course in Oxford in the past, and that didn't make it. So what happens if this doesn't make it? How is that gonna be handled? Just hope y'all take everything into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to call Mr. Rob Parker.
Thank you. Official name's Robert D. Barker Jr., but I go by Rob. I live at 5668 Taft Creek Road. I also own the house next door, which is 5658 Taft Creek Road. Well, when I look around, unlike, I think everybody in the room, if I'm wrong, you tell me, unlike everybody in the room, I grew up where I live. I've been there for 65 years. It's not that I'm opposed to change. You said, well, you don't want change. No, I realize we have to have change in life. I understand that. But there's a proper way of doing it. I agree with what Bond just said. You know, it's too much. It's entirely too much. It's going to change our way of life. It's too crowded. It's going to be too noisy. It's going to be too much traffic. I think I said this last time I talked. My wife, we already got a lot of traffic on that road. My wife pulled out the driveway the other morning. I was behind her. She sat there and looked to the right, which is back toward the lake, toward Huntsbury area, and nothing was coming. I was looking too. She hadn't hardly got the length of this room before a car came up on her, flying, and went around her and pulled in front of another car. That's going to only increase the density in that area. I think it's just entirely too much. You know, that's something for us to think about. I have been a mailman in Henderson, North Carolina, in the city for 40 years. I have seen a lot of change. Change is not always good. I'm not opposed to it if it's good. But I've seen a lot of crime rate go up in the city of Henderson with all this building and so forth, and complexes and so forth. I think it's entirely too much. I know some people are totally against it. Like I said, I realize we have to have change in life. If it was something more along the line of a Salem Farms or a Parham Woods, it might not be so bad. But what we're proposing here, I think is just entirely too much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Henry Dorsey. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Handwriting is not one of my strong suits. All right. Henry Murray, 4098 Salem Road. So I live in the Graham Estates subdivision, which directly borders this Hunt Landis proposal. First, I want to thank the commissioners for the opportunity to speak tonight and for hearing from me and from my neighbors. We really appreciate the opportunity here, of course. So last month, several members of the community raised concerns about the incompatibility of this proposal's excessive density and insufficient buffer with Oxford's small town character. These concerns aligned with the survey results included in the city's own comprehensive land use plan, where the #1 priority of residents was small town living and a top concern was impacts of growth. Unfortunately, Hunt Landis has received only minor changes since the last meeting. I urge the commissioners tonight to again echo the voice of the people and decline to advance this proposal until meaningful changes to density and buffer can be achieved to truly harmonize Hunt Landis with the small town character of our community. Please stand with the people of the community and let there be no question that the small town character of Oxford, which we all treasure and we all hold so dear, is not for sale. Regarding density, as the community indicated in January, the light, noise, and traffic generated by 4.56 units per acre would compromise the serenity of existing residents' small town lifestyles. Additionally, the proposed density would cause the city population to increase by about 50%, putting untold strain on city services. We could reduce overall density and create a smoother transition with existing homes by applying RA or RA conservation zoning to at least the outer portions of Hunt Landis, especially the 6055 Tabbs Creek parcel. For the affected portions, this would limit the density to 1 or 2 units per acre respectively, which would be much more appropriate for the area and could eliminate the need for the Salem Road entrance. Regarding buffer, in addition to reducing density, the inclusion of a substantial natural buffer would be crucial to comfortable transition between Hunt Landis and the rural homes around it. Sufficient buffer could be achieved by simply extending already proposed natural preservation areas along the border with existing rural homes and subdivision lots. An appropriate buffer would match the depth of one of the new smaller single-family lots and extend from a neighborhood street to create a natural edge for the development. And of course, these more substantial buffers could also be used to enhance greenway connectivity and avoid greenway dead ends. Many of us in the community are deeply concerned about the excessive density and insufficient buffer in the current version of Hunt Landis. I'd love to see some version of this, with reduced density, increased buffer, but this current version's a problem. So to the people here tonight, if you're concerned about the development, I'd invite you to stand and remain standing. And to the commissioners, the people of the community are counting on you, the elected representatives of Oxford, to stand with us and make clear that the small town character of Oxford is not for sale. We need lower density. We need more buffer. Thank you, and I'll gladly answer any questions the commissioners may have for me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This time, I'd like to call Mr. Phil Rifkin. I hope I'm saying your name right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Your Honor, thank you for letting me speak tonight. We were talking about zoning, so I looked into zoning a little bit, and I found Article 7 zoning regulations. Paragraph 160D, there's 701 purposes. Zoning regulations shall be made in accordance with a comprehensive plan and shall be designed to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare. To that end, the regulations may address, among other things, the following public purposes: to provide adequate light, air, to prevent overcrowding of land, to avoid undue concentration of population, to lessen congestion in the streets, to secure safety from fire, panic, and dangers, to facilitate the efficient congestion in the streets, and equate provisions of transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, and other public requirements, and to promote the health, safety, and morals or general welfare of the community. The regulations shall be made with reasonable consideration, among other things, as to the character of the district and its peculiar suitability for the particular uses for which a view to conserve the buildings, encourage the most appropriate use of land throughout the local government's planning and development regulation jurisdiction. Now, we already went over, this town is too small right now. We need to make things larger. We need to improve things as they are. The services, electric, water, police, fire, quick. We were told last month, we have the best police chief there is and the best fire chief there is. Well, that's great. He's one man. You need a proper people below him, and we don't have that. Last month, I had the necessity to call the police, and I was asked if I wanted a policeman to call me back, which I did. The man called me back. He was in Creedmoor. I asked him if he could make it to my house. He couldn't. Why? Because there were only 3 men on duty that night. 3. That's for the entire town of Oxford. We need more. This town needs to be prepared and needs to be built up and be ready for this project, for this addition. Now, continuing on, I found something that says that it has to be ready.
Thank you, sir.
When it's built. We're not ready.
Thank you,
to
sir.
have this thing built. Thank you very much for your time.
This time, I'd like to call Kathy May.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. I noticed in the survey that was done by the city in 2022 as preparation for the city's comprehensive plan that 67% who responded said their top priority for the future of Oxford was small town living. The second highest number of votes, at 53%, said their top priority was to retain the city's rural atmosphere. In addition, I saw that the principles that are reflected in the city's land use map include maintaining rural character and retaining historic appearance. By approving the development in the way that it is presented, you will be overcrowding the land, creating undue concentration of population in the space, and creating massive congestion in the streets. Most of us are not opposed to tasteful, controlled growth that fits into the rural atmosphere of our community. But crowding 4.5 houses per acre of land will translate into thousands of people and will result in a traffic nightmare for everyone in the area. And please do not forget that Oxford Prep sits right in the middle between Salem Road and Landis Road, with 860 students and a plan to increase that number by 33% within 2 years. These students travel to and from school every day on these same roads. Even though they don't live there, they still are traveling the roads. And you'll soon have another development, as was mentioned earlier, just across the road from this one that'll be coming before you, known as the Perry Farm. And this is over 500 acres with a very similar plan. So what we're looking at is within a 3-mile radius, you would be doubling the population of Oxford. Just imagine the traffic, the noise, the decrease of the air quality, taking away our small town character. I respectfully ask that you please send the developers back to the drawing board. Ask them to reduce the number of houses per acre, create more of a buffer around the perimeter of the property, and do whatever is necessary to ensure that these homes fit into the historic appearance that everyone loves about Oxford. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rod Heinz. Am I saying that right, sir?
Rod Heinz, 4191 Indian Trail. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. The January meeting of this board brought hope to the citizens who expressed concern about the Hunt-Landis annexation. It appeared that the board recognized the proposal did not reflect Oxford and therefore allowed the developers to adjust their proposal. The adjustment was very slight, just a change to some buffers, it appears. You know, in good faith, I was hoping that the developers would lower the density within the city's own future use guide of 4 units per acre. That didn't happen. The density of this proposal remains at 5 times the density of the current city of Oxford. In January, the California wildfires were burning, largely now forgotten, but those who live there, whose lives have been changed forever due to the lack of planning, due to the lack of infrastructure, many will never recover. May we learn from their heartache and their pain. In January, this board also discussed the inability to patrol parking issues in the city. Too many issues such as this need to be attended to before we add another 4,000 or 5,000 people in a 0.64 square mile area. Other concerns dealt with the stress on the infrastructure, water, power, police, fire, and rescue. Thank you, Mayor, for your Navy service. I too was in the Navy, and it was there that I first heard the saying, we've been doing so much with so little for so long, they expect us to do everything forever with nothing. The point being is that you can only stretch the police force, the fire department, the rescue squad so far, no matter how good they are. And you know what? The better they are, the more we're going to stretch them. True in the Navy, true right here in Oxford. Growth, yes, but responsible, in line with the city's own future use guide, in line with the community and what Oxford is, a place with its own character, a place we will be proud to leave to our descendants. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. This time I'd like to call Mr. James McCoy.
Good afternoon. I'm Eddie McCoy, I live 408 Kingsborough Street. For you here that lives in the city, this is what I want to speak to, is people live in the city. You got to have 10,000 people, 10,000, before you consider a city. You have to have 10,000. Now, you think that these Wegmans and these other grocery stores we need to come to town, you're not going to get them. You're not going to get nothing in this city unless you got 10,000 people. I'm talking to city people, not the people around the county. You got to have 10,000 people. City people, you pay 2 taxes, right? You pay 2 taxes, city and county. Why don't these people come to the mic and tell you they pay 2 taxes? They don't pay 2 taxes. They do not pay 2 taxes. Commission, this city is broke. This city do not have any money. Commissioner Quan Bridget, you've been here 12, 13, 14 years. You can say amen to that. The city is broke. They don't have no money. This city does not have any money. They think you're rich. You don't have any money. So, right after we need help, we need somebody to pay 2 taxes. They come here and stand talking about, well, the fire department, this and that. We need this and that. How are you going to tell us what we need if you're going to help us pay? Pay for this. Who's going to pay for it? Well, if you bring those people in, it's stretch out. Go to the county commission, see what they say. You live in the city. They ain't know you. And say, I'm sorry, you're the wrong board. So tonight, I'm saying this. If you live in the city, you can vote for all these gentlemen up here. You can vote for them. If you live in the county, you cannot vote for any of them. I know that. Now, we need help. We don't have no eggs in the store. Amen. We don't have, I bought them in Durham Saturday because I know none in Oxford. And you didn't live out of town. If anybody says there's a big lie, tell me that if you was in Raleigh and Durham and Henderson, you bought eggs when you got back to Oxford. You tell a lie. Because won't none here. And it ain't gonna be there for 6 months. Now let's be real, people. We're gonna be real tonight. We need somebody to pay 2 taxes. The city pay 2 taxes. City and county. Nobody come up here and say that they pay 2 taxes. Now who's gonna pay this? Who's gonna support this city? You're gonna sit back and say you don't need them people. You got to be crazy. We gonna want those people to come help us pay these taxes. And it takes 10,000 people. After we get 10,000 people, come back. That's what you do, come back. That's what you do. That's what you need to do, come back then. And you gentlemen talking about the streets, this. Now you wanna know when College Street gonna be done? When y'all move here and help us pay the taxes and pay the street. That's when it's gonna be done.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCoy.
If you wanna know when College Street gonna be done.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCoy.
That's when it's gonna be paid. And it ain't gonna be paid if y'all send us some money. If you don't get no money, it ain't gonna be paid. And don't talk about it. Drive outside the city and drive around the loop. You don't like the way the city pays.
Thank you. And next we have Mrs. Anna Austin, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. McCoy, I'm on the board. You made a statement about the men up here. I'm on the board.
Call the president, tell him.
I'm telling you.
Mrs. Anna Austin.
Anna Houseman, 306 Broad Street. I have to say, I did really enjoy the reference to Pottersville. It's a Wonderful Life is one of my favorite movies of all time, and there's a lot to be learned from that. And I also really like the point that was made that development requires invested business owners. And I come to you tonight as a business owner who has been fighting tooth and nail to get my business opened and to change things for hopefully the better, and to be engaged in just about any committee I could be on and show up just about any place I could. But I'm asking again for you to consider and think about and review how you are handling updating the ordinances within our city. There's a lot that we've talked about before that are outdated. There are some that are really restrictive. So if you are considering bringing in big development, how are you getting businesses in here? Because I'm pretty darn determined, and it's been real hard. So there are a lot of other people who are like, nah, I could go elsewhere. I just happen to live here, have my daughter go to school with your grandbabies. You talked to her this week. And so I'm not going anywhere, but there are lots of people who would just leave. And I'd like to see that change. I'm also really curious what you're doing about the amendments and other things that go into the UDO and how they are being codified, because I got to discover that the mobile food vendor ordinance that I've been researching so in depth isn't codified, and isn't, at least to my understanding, it's not codified. It's not in the UDO as it is on the website. And if that's the case, it's not enforceable. I did talk to my lawyer, so don't worry, I will not be showing up going against the amendment that's in there. I've been told not to. But if that's not codified, my question is, what else is not being put into the UDO? What else are we not holding up to the way that it was written, or the way that you guys have voted on, or the way that it's been planned? So I'm just curious and would love for you all to look into the UDO some more in depth and look at what's missing, if there are things that haven't been put in appropriately, so that it is being enforced appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osmond. At this time, we have Mr. Thomas Blaine.
Thomas Blaine, I live in the county at 3192 Candy Mill Road.
You do?
I do. Small business owner in Oxford.
Thank you. You pay tax.
Pay a lot of them. So this is a short version of our thing I sent to y'all earlier today. Recent articles in the Triangle Business Journal highlight how developers see Oxford as a cheap building opportunity, prioritizing cost cutting over community enrichment. But Oxford shouldn't be the cheap option. Granville County and Oxford must shift their focus from rapid, profit-driven expansion to sustainable, high-value growth. This doesn't mean luxury or unaffordable housing. Rather, it means building well-designed, durable homes that retain and grow in value over time, strengthening the financial health of both residents and the city. Oxford has the opportunity to become a true regional hub, a center of commerce, culture, and high-quality living in its own right, rather than simply absorbing overflow from the Triangle. To do so, it must prioritize growth that adds value, including thoughtful planning for housing, infrastructure, and economic development. A well-planned approach to development can help ensure that new housing contributes equitably to the city's infrastructure. With the vast majority of Oxford's tax revenue coming from property taxes, the city must prioritize growth that supports its long-term physical stability. Thoughtful planning will allow Oxford to maintain and improve essential services rather than being overwhelmed by unchecked suburban sprawl. The challenge now is for local leaders and residents to push for policies that demand higher quality development, preserve the town's unique identity, and ensure growth that directly benefits the city of Oxford, rather than just developers looking for a quick return. Oxford can take control of its future as a local and regional hub, or risk becoming just another distant suburb of the Triangle. The choice is ours. Oxford's approach to growth must be measured, strategic, and fiscally responsible, not just growth for growth's sake. The pressures of unchecked expansion are already straining the city's infrastructure, particularly its water and sewer system. which is struggling to keep up with demand. Without careful planning, continued rapid development will only worsen these challenges, putting both residents and the city's long-term financial health at risk. If not for the tens of, I'm not sure the exact number, but I think it's over $200 million in grants and low-interest loans secured by Oxford's engineering department, taxpayers would already be paying a significantly higher burden to maintain their city's water department and water infrastructure. Adding new developments without fully accounting for their long-term impact will further strain an already borderline water system, potentially leading to higher costs for its current residents.
Thank you, sir.
I know this, and if anybody else wants to hear me, 3 minutes sometimes isn't enough to address an issue. Do the math. There's math. You do the math. Developers are doing the math. The city of Oxford.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Blaine. Were you here for proclamation, sir? No, he was not. No, thank you. So that concludes our public comment at this time. We'll move into the city business. The first item of business tonight to consider approving conditional rezoning of 409 acres from AR 40 to RMUCU located off of Landis, Salem, and Tabbs Creek Road. The applicant is proposing as a condition that the density be set at 4.56 units, 1,300 square feet, homes, 71 acres of open space, and 10.24 acres of recreation space. The planning board recommend approval of this request. Is there a motion?
There were a lot of questions from the audience or comments, and I was just wondering, you know, the issue of the golf course and some other things. I just wonder if the developers wanted to respond to any of the issues raised, because I heard something about who's going to handle the golf course. You know, let's talk about that. And you know, some other, and I believe recreational things for the school, how it's going to affect the school.
Yes, sir.
Oxford.
Yes, sir.
Oxford.
So the golf course is not going to be owned and operated by the HOA. It will be owned and operated by a private entity that's not beholden to the city in any way. So the city, it's not the city's burden to own and operate it. It's not the HOA's burden to own and operate it. The recreation space, the amenity space associated with the residential development, such as clubhouses, pools, playgrounds, those types of facilities would be owned and operated and maintained by the HOA. The project does, in addition, it does propose a donation of property to Oxford Preparatory School. I believe Mr. Swanner was up here at the last meeting back in January and supported the project. Unlike some other residential developments in Oxford in the area, this one proposes a mix of uses. It's not just single family homes. It's, you know, it does have the commercial component. It has a mix of housing types, whereas something like, I believe, Oakmont and the LGI property on 96 are all single family homes, similar lot sizes, no variation. The intent here is it's a different intent. It's not a typical development. It's not your standard cookie cutter subdivision. It's meant to be more than that. And I think that's shown on the sketch plan, and it was discussed at length with the planning board, and that's what ultimately garnered a favorable vote to approve it, to move to this step. And at this point, I would speak to the density. I mean, 4.56 is the absolute maximum that can be built on this property. The developer is committed to not go all the way to the maximum allowed in the RMU. That is cut significantly down, and that is the maximum. So there is the possibility, and frankly, it is, you know, from an engineering perspective, it will be less than that because the layout currently doesn't account for grading. It doesn't account for utility easements. So there will be some concessions in areas where there will be lower or it will be less houses than what's ultimately proposed here.
And when you had the map up, there were a number of boxes on there about traffic studies, you know, and I can understand.
Yes, sir.
People who have concerns about the young people that will be going back and forth to school and.
Correct. That is true. So the traffic impact analysis was done by registered professional engineers that specialize in traffic studies. And it's not just for this project, as I mentioned. It incorporates multiple developments in this area. It incorporates the existing traffic today, and it takes all those factors into consideration and proposes improvements that should help move traffic better. It may not move exactly the way it does today, but it will move in a reasonable fashion to get folks from point A to point B safely and efficiently. So there is, you know, if you go to Raleigh, traffic there is a lot different than it is here. Not that that's going to happen here, but it will change. But with the improvements that are required of this development, there will be safe traffic patterns, you know, and more efficient movements if those improvements were not, you know, weren't required. And that's something that the city of Oxford does that's better than a lot of other municipalities. The traffic impact analysis was one of the first things we had to do. Frankly, I mean, we were talking to Butner about a similar project, not quite this size, but they don't even require traffic impact analysis. So the city of Oxford is thinking ahead and forward thinking from that perspective.
And last but not least, time period. From the point of, you know, because all we're voting on is zoning.
Correct.
But in terms of houses going up and completion of this project, what kind of time period are we talking?
Correct. So tonight is just a vote on zoning. There is a lot of engineering work, a lot of additional studies, a lot of additional planning that has to go into place before we actually submit construction drawings for Cheryl to review and her engineering staff for city to review. So this project is going to be built out over years. It's, you know, houses won't be built here for at least a year or 2 years, more than likely. And ultimately, the build out of this project is probably 10 to 15 years out. So it's a long-term commitment. I know one of the speakers mentioned a quick profit, you know, turn and run. This one's different. This is different. It's like I mentioned. It's got the components that will be retained by an entity that's not associated with HOA, and it's a long-term build out. So it's a commitment, you know, from the developers to help improve the community or build something that, you know, hopefully Oxford and the citizens of Oxford can be proud of.
Can you describe some of the changes that will be made to the roads? What were some of the recommendations?
Sure. So there will be turn lanes added. Signals will be analyzed down the road as traffic patterns change. But if you want to skip to like slide 15 or 16, something like that, we're going to keep on going. As long towards the end. Keep going. One more, I think. One more. There we go. So these were about roughly the 15 intersections that were analyzed. So, and that's part of DOT scoping meeting when this project came forward. So these weren't chosen at random. These were chosen specifically by the professional engineers that did the study in conjunction with NCDOT, who owns and operates and maintains the roads in this area. So these were intersections were particular places of concern. So, so multiple turn lanes will be added. You know, essentially, or all the proposed site entry points to the project will have multiple turn lanes, left turn lanes in, right turn lanes in, multiple left and right and straight turn lanes coming out. The ramps down at I-85 will be improved. And just so the city and everybody here knows, all these improvements are going to have to be paid for by the private developer. So this is not, you know, city's money or public money or anything like that. This is part of the commitment of this project to do this breadth of traffic improvements is atypical from most projects. But yeah, there will be, like I said, multiple turn lanes at all of these intersections. Each one that's identified will have multiple road improvements and turn lanes associated with those locations.
Does anyone else have a question for Mr. Preston?
Excuse me, in regards to the density, which seems to be one of the #1 sticking points from the public, and you may not be able to answer this without going back to the drawing board, but what could you do in regards to the density? Is there any wiggle room in your mind?
Not at this point that I can tell you right now. This has been a year-long, or more than a year-long process. So that density has been scrutinized. We've modified it, massaged it a little bit. We're significantly below what's allowed. We are slightly higher than what the city's future land use map shows by half a unit per acre, which over the breadth or entirety of the project can be a significant number, but it's in harmony with what the future land use map shows for this area. So, and like I said, 4.56 is optimistic. It's the high end. We have to commit to a high end. If we committed to 2 and went to 3, we'd be right back here again. So we're shooting high or aiming high, and then we're going to come in below that number when the construction drawings are put together and all the details are worked out.
One more question. So again, with wiggle room in regards to buffer, is there and I'm sure you know this land very well, are you at the max for the amount of buffer that you can have, or is there still like a little bit more that you may be able to give if need be?
So right now we've committed to meet the city's requirements, and we've committed to go above and beyond that adjacent to developed land. So where we're meeting the city's minimum is primarily against undeveloped parcels currently. But where there are developed lots adjacent to it, that's where we increased that buffer width and made some concessions, which that concession would also reduce density, but we're still sticking with the 4.56 just to be consistent with what the planning board approved and not have to go back. Honestly, not have to go back, but not have to backtrack in the process at this point since it's been ongoing for over a year now. So that buffer will affect the density. The other buffers, like I said, are adjacent to undeveloped parcels that currently don't have houses constructed on them or already have wooded vegetation adjacent to them. So, anybody developed, let's use the south boundary as an example. Anybody that developed to the south, which I believe there is a project plan for the south, would know what's planned to the north and what's proposed, and if they wanted an additional buffer, they could put it on their side of the project.
Thank you.
Any more questions from Mr. President West? Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Does the board have any other questions? Here we go. There was a request made for a motion. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. All in favor? Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
One opposed, as the record may show. This time, motion carries. Next item, item 5.2, consider calling for public hearing for the March meeting for conditional rezoning request of the Perry Farm development consisting of 5.27 acres from AR40 to RMU residential mixed use with a density proposed of 2.35 per unit. Staff recommends calling for the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, consent agenda. Consider approving the January 6th and 15 minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Consider appointing Melanie Fraser to the Oxford Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I believe you said you have one person.
Yeah, you are with the church, correct?
Yes. Will you come forward, sir? Sorry, Mayor Pro Temple. This proclamation should have been done back in time, but there was a little time issue with me getting back from overseas to here, so we've asked you to come today.
City of Oxford, North Carolina, 4-lane highway, not two. Higher is waiting. Whereas Higher is a faith-based outreach and nonprofit organization, and whereas its mission is to educate, equip, and empower teens by fostering spiritual growth, leadership, and community service. And whereas Higher is waiting to provide resources such as food, hygiene items, and support to local shelters and to host events that inspire teens to engage with their faith and community. And whereas one of its goals is to create a safe haven for teens everywhere, and whereas on Saturday, the 18th, 2025, they will hold their first anniversary banquet. And whereas the program name is Empowered, and whereas its vision is to provide faith-based mentorship and essential resources, helping teens thrive spiritually and personally. And whereas its founder is Minister Jaden Watkins, is that you? An incredible 16-year-old, and whereas it has an active membership of 120 plus teens aged 13 to 19. Wow. And whereas this membership grew to 120 plus in 1 year. Now, therefore, I, Guillermo Nurse, Mayor of Oxford, along with the Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim Saturday, January 18th, 2025, as the anniversary banquet for the program Empowered. I urge all teens to join Minister Jaden Watkins in his mission to aid and support local teens. In witness, therefore, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Oxford, North Carolina, to be affixed this, the 18th day of January, 2025, Guillermo Nurse, Mayor. Now, wait a minute. I'm gonna give you a grandma hug. It is not many teenagers that have the vision to not only think of himself, but others. If nobody's told you lately, I am proud of you.
This young man studies at Emerson Collegiate. He's one of the honor students there. And he actually ran a program for Hispanic Heritage Month when I met him, and it was an excellent program. Thank you, Jay.
Keep going.
Thank y'all so much.
Keep going, baby.
Great job.
They didn't give me no big trick.
We need donations.
See, Thomas. At this time, we will start by asking every commissioners to make a statement, and I will start with Commissioner Lumpkins. You're the starter this time. Your partner, Commissioner Velez, is out suffering from the flu illness.
First I want to apologize on behalf of the young man that just got this award for the disrespect of everybody leaving and talking, and it's just unfortunate. Kind of shows. I'll just stop there. I have some fun facts. All right. So in our comprehensive land use plan, the company that we worked with that did it ran the numbers on acreage in the city of Oxford and our ETJ. So we have right now, as of the time of this, it's probably changed a little bit, but we have 48.17% of the city of Oxford and the ETJ is currently vacant or agriculture. 2.44% is parks and open space. So that's over half of the land in Oxford and the ETJ that is vacant. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, sir. This is Commissioner Brooks' first turn around. Sir?
Mr. Watkins, I commend you. And at most events you go to, there's a moment where the creator tells you this is why you do what you do. This is why we do what we do. People like you. So I commend you. Not just as a young man, but just as there are a lot of adults that wouldn't do what you do. So, and dealing with teens, I coached my daughter's, I assistant coached my daughter's volleyball team for 3 years. Again. I'll dap you up for sure. I want to shake your hand before you leave. But when it comes to dealing with the growth of our city, our fair city, I'm reminded every time I get up out of my bed, go out of my house and drive to Henderson to go to Biscuitville, drive to Henderson like I did today to go to lunch, to go to Chick-fil-A. I'm thinking, wow, it would be great if this was 5 minutes away as opposed to, or 10 minutes away as opposed to 20 or 25 minutes away from my house. So the limited amount of growth that our city has seen, that's one of the things that you don't get. A lot of us go to Raleigh or Durham just to eat a good steak, a great steak. We have good steaks here, but to eat certain meals, you have to go to other cities. And it would be great if we could have that in our town. But we are committed to listening to our citizens, and that's why we don't make hasty decisions. So again, I heard you when you said density, and I, as a commissioner, I will be one of those people concentrating and focusing on density. So we hear you, and again, Jaden. Great job, young man. Thank you.
Sir. This time, Commissioner McCray.
As always, thank you, Brother Watkins. Brother Watkins, Minister Watkins. Address you appropriately. Minister Watkins, thank you for what you do and the people that you serve. I definitely will keep you in my prayers, and I ask that God continue to order your steps in His Word, and that you be obedient to your call. And it seems like that's been the case thus far. So, young man, if you have a bright future. Continue to let God lead you. Just be obedient to His word. And again, I have to echo what Commissioner Lumpkin said. Our apologies for that. You or your service is definitely not deserving of that. But please, sir, don't let it deter you. If anything, I pray that it motivates you to keep doing what you're doing. As far as with the voting and everything on tonight on the rezoning. I want to ask, if you haven't, citizen, take a look at the comprehensive land use. Okay, if you haven't, there was a lot of reference made to that tonight. It's an interesting read. While some numbers were thrown out, I would also encourage you again just to read it. But what wasn't mentioned was that in a lot of cases there was, when you look at some of the voting, there was a higher number of citizens concerned with restoration of buildings than it is for emergency responses. Okay. Well, again, if you weren't aware that you hadn't read it, you wouldn't know. And a lot of times people say, well, yo, this is the Bible. This is what we need to go. And it presents a guideline. Okay. But again, read it in depth. Read it for yourself. I've always been one, I'll listen to what you said, but I promise you don't follow up in just because I want to make my own interpretations. And I implore each one of you to do that as well. As always, I greatly appreciate everyone coming out. This is what it's about. As I've said before, will there be a total agreement at all times? Absolutely not. And I would actually, if you even wanted that, I mean, we're not, sheep, we're not robots. You're entitled to your own opinions. That's why it's important that you come out and let your voices be heard, not only during voting, but in forums like this as well. Again, continue to do so, but also when we come in, let's make sure we are informed, make sure we're educated. And know exactly what it is we're talking about. And I know we have gone over in depth. So thank you, ma'am, so much. I know with the planning, I know it's a difficult task. So I thank you and applaud your efforts and what you do and advising us as well to make well-informed decisions. So again, I thank each and every one of you. But again, I would task you not only to go back and read it, but it's very important whenever you have the opportunity to let your voice be heard via survey, do that. According to this, it was roughly about 300 people, a little bit over 300 people that responded. We have a city of 8,000. That's less than, that's around 3-4%. Things like this are vital, they're important. This gives you the opportunity to, again, to speak on things. Now, again, I would encourage you to do that. Again, to let not only use this one, but when opportunities come for you to let your voices be heard in other manners, surveys, take advantage of those as well. Because again, it's your voice. It is your voice, and it should never be taken from you. And that's something that you guys shouldn't take lightly, because it gives you the opportunity to again, to lay your feelings out, and not only in this forum. So again, thank you guys so much, and I guess. On next month, we'll look forward to taking things to the next level. Again, Godspeed to each and every one of you, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Commissioner McCray. City Attorney, if you'd like to. City Manager.
Actually, I would like to add something tonight. Heard a lot here tonight about planning, being smart. I think I even heard a phrase, doing the math. Well, I want to tell you, when any development comes up, it goes to a very capable technical review committee and a staff, professional staff that knows what they need to be looking for and how the development needs to be done, how they need to plan to provide those services. And there's a lot of math that goes into it. It not only goes into it for next year, 5 years, we're looking at things 20 and 30 years out. Things that aren't necessarily brought up at a retreat when we're talking about 5-year increments, because a lot of times that's what most people can grasp right now, 5-year increments. It's how many officers that we need, what do we need to equip them with, what are they going to be doing. Not only are we looking at the next fire station, but we're looking at the 3rd fire station, where that needs to be. Public Works, and what equipment they need to have, what routes we're going to have, what all that looks like going forward. That is taking place now, along with all the other infrastructure and a lot of other things, economic factors, social demographic factors, environmental factors. There's a lot of things that take place when staff is reviewing that. So if anybody's under the impression that that's not taking place, that they are absolutely totally mistaken. Now, they may not agree with density or things like that, okay? That is certainly the decision y'all make. But what we do is we tell you how we can make that work, and it doesn't put the existing citizens in a vulnerable position. And that's a lot of what we spend our time doing, is trying to think, when will this happen? How do we make sure that the existing citizens don't get hung out to dry if something does happen? We all remember what happened in 2008, where the economy went to a complete standstill. Well, we think about those things, and then we make sure our citizens are protected from that. So I just want to make sure that if there's any doubt that that's not taking place, it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Toby.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. We know that. But I don't think sometimes the general public know that. It's just a couple of little things. Mr. Watkins, thank you very much for what you do. Someone was speaking earlier on and said about the police and the fire department, and it might be the same man. Well, we have a female chief of police who does a wonderful job, and a male chief fire chief. So let's get that straight first. I wanted to thank really the people of Oxford and the people of Granville County. I just went to an ACIM Thanksgiving dinner sort of thing for all the volunteers there. And I just wanted to let you know what the people of Granville and Oxford have done for ACIM. We gave away 1.3 million pounds of food last year. So I want to thank you all for doing that. So so we still need donations, and I'm speaking on the basis. But thank you all for coming tonight. Appreciate
Thank you, Mr. Toby. Minister Bridges.
Yeah, Minister Watkins, I think you've been told several times how proud we are of what you do. So I'm gonna go ahead and add to that, because, as I think over my career, the thing that I enjoyed the most that used to be in existence was the Big Brother program. Friends of Youth was the specific name of the program, and I was a Big Brother for, I don't know, close to 20 years. I worked with young men that stayed with me for a year, and then, I'd get a new young man the next year. And all I can say is, over that period of time, it was a good feeling to give back to young men. Myself coming from a family of 11, living in the projects, I really knew what I was working with and some of the things that they were dealing with, just from my own experience. But see, the work you do is telling me that those young men will not come to the court system that Mr. Burnett and, and other attorneys have to deal with on a daily basis. So the success you have, I know, is going to affect who I might see in our court system. So I do appreciate the work you do. And I want to say this to the audience. Yeah, some of the audience has left. But I think the interaction between us as commissioners and people in the public is so important to us. And to me, it's enriching. So the only issue, we talked a lot about zoning, but I heard everyone that came up to this podium and who talked about issues that they feel that the city needs to address. And I want you to know that, this is what we signed up for. And people can talk about elections and those kind of things. This is service to the community. And if you can't see that we as commissioners care, I don't know what to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bridges. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, all the acclamations and conversation about the vote has been said, so I'm not going to reiterate that. To Mr. Watkins, I gave you your grandma a hug. But in order for you to be where you are, there had to be some parents somewhere instilling in you the desire to work not only for your self-improvement, but for the gratification and the education of others. So my hat goes off to your parents who built the foundation, to your parents. We will be having company next week. Our Congressman Don Davis will be visiting Oxford, and I will have the privilege of escorting him through my school, West Oxford Elementary School, where I'm a don't be laughing.
Three of them in that school.
Huh?
You three take care of that school.
I ain't thinking about them. Mr. McCord instead it was all boys up, all men up here, so I got to toot my horn when I can. My school, West Oxford, where I will be escorting him through West Oxford next Tuesday from 1 to 2. And the other time he will be escorted by other members of the board to various places to express our desires for the city of Oxford and employ him to do what he can for the city of Oxford. So in other words, we're going to put our best foot forward, not for the board, not for ourselves, but for the citizens of Oxford. So we look forward to that. Mr. Watkins, you overpowered me. If I had anything else, you wiped it out. So that's it. But again, keep going. You're going to hit some rough patches. But roughness, if you step on it long enough, it'll become smooth. So keep going.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We've been talking about rezoning and different things happening to the city of Oxford. I was fortunate this week to be handed a copy of 1983 revitalization plan of the city of Oxford. And when I started reading that plan, I was amazed. The items that was in that plan was done by North Carolina State University. It called for putting the power lines below ground. It talked about so many things in the city. And I'm like, what happened? Why didn't they do it? And that paper's in my office. If anybody wants a copy, we'll make a copy of it. But if you look and see way back, there was a problem. And it's called vision, to me. And today I was talking with a couple in my office, and I mentioned to them, actually we talked about Proverbs 29:18. That talks about a city without a vision perishes. And when he handed me his presentation, it had the same Proverbs 29:18 on it. The board, I am very proud of the way this board carried itself today. We don't have to be agreeing on everything, but we check each other and we represent the people of this city. And a lot of folks don't look at what's going on and they look at it personal. You know, I hear people say they moved from all over the state to come here. Oh, well, I moved from all over the world and did not pick here, but I ended up here and I love it here. So I will do my best to be what I can. West Oxford Elementary School, I think I'm going to start making that my home. I was there again for the second or third time talking to the third grade kids. So I don't know how. I'm not going to go. I can't compete with you, Mayor Pro Tem. But it was a wonderful at that school, and they do a wonderful program with all the kids down there. They even have a dual language program. And you don't find that in most schools, in public schools. One thing that we miss with all this development discussion, the developers are offering a section of their property for us to build the next fire station and stuff like that. We didn't get to that. But when you have a developer that's willing to do that because they see the growth that the city needs, and that's been discussed, I've heard that them telling us that. So again, everybody comes in and talk about what's going on in the city, but they really don't do their homework and research and see what's going on. Okay. And really, I think I'm good. But I have to say, I want to thank everyone for coming out today. Just don't come out when the subject is hot and everybody wants to voice their opinion. We want everybody to voice their opinion, but we need your support, and we feed off you. When you tell us things, we take it for granted. And we put the miles on and go do research. We just don't take it and come back another thing. We do the research. So thank you all for coming. At this time, we're gonna throw a little recess because we're gonna come back and do a short closed session.
Motion to adjourn to closed session.
Motion adjourned to closed session. And second. All in favor? Adjourn to go to closed session.